So guys, welcome back to the channel, and as we said in last week's video, it's going to be only me for the next couple of weeks. We've spent the last week down in Cambridge visiting Nicola's mum. In fact, we also went down to the Norfolk coast, took Nicola's mum down there for a little bit of a break. And then yesterday, both Nicola and I headed up to Birmingham to the motorhome and caravan show. We actually met a couple of subscribers as well. Hello out there. And Nicola then jumped back on the train and went back down to Cambridge. She's going to spend the next sort of 10 days with her mum. I've driven up to Scotland, just across the border actually, in a little area that we have stayed at a number of times here in Glencappell. Couple of issues. Firstly, where this area is situated, it can have quite high tides. And in fact, that's exactly what's been happening in the last couple of days. Now, tonight, I think last night it was slightly higher. It was about 9.4 metres, the high tide. Tonight, it's about 9.1 metres. But last night's high tide did, in fact, breach the car park here. And so they've actually unfortunately closed the official area. Now, I've actually parked in one of the little spaces here because, of course, it is just after low tide at the moment, so no risk of any flooding at the moment. Now, there is another area down the way which is actually set in a little woodland, but that leads me on to my second potential issue. So over the last couple of days, given the fact that I knew I was coming up to Scotland, I was paying attention to the rain, and it does look as though it's a beautiful day today, but it does look as though we are due some pretty significant rainfall over the next couple of days. I wasn't really paying much attention to the wind, and it turns out at some point tomorrow morning, winds are getting up. In fact, they've given out, I think, an amber warning for the west of Scotland. Now, that means that staying in that wood tonight, now I've been checking different weather forecasts, I don't think the worst of the wind comes through to about, well, it starts building up about 8 o'clock in the morning. So I could, of course, skip out at 6 o'clock in the morning and come back down here, by which point it would have been sort of high tide sort of 4 or 5 hours ago. Now, the wind is due to get pretty strong, albeit only for about 24 hours. Now, I was hoping to track up the west side of Scotland for a little bit, but it looks as though the west side especially is going to get absolutely battered. And tomorrow night at about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock through till about 4 or 5 in the morning, we could see gusts of up to 70, 80 miles an hour. And that's not something I want to be experiencing in the van, especially in Scotland. So what I'm going to do is tomorrow morning, I'm going to leave here pretty early and I'm going to track a little bit east. That was my original plan actually, but then there was going to be a lot of driving involved, so I thought go up the west, but of course the weather and the wind have changed my plans. But the first thing I need to decide is whether I'm going to stay here, albeit move back to one of the normal car parking spaces, or hang around here to sort of 5, 6 o'clock, listen to the football, and then skedaddle down to the little woodland, which is probably my preference. Now, staying here would have been fantastic because they do have access to toilets and things like that, but they do have full emptying facilities down at the other place. But I'm going to spend the next couple of hours listening to the football, hopefully Man U actually doing something worthwhile for a change, and then we'll make a plan. But this is a beautiful area here. It's really stunning. Really good to watch sort of some of the overwintering wildfowl as well. In fact, the Wetland Trust Claverock is just down the way as well. But yeah, gonna make myself a cuppa and make a plan. There's always trauma. Turns out, don't even need Nicola for there to be trauma. Hey, man, you actually won a game. About 5:30. I think I'm going to stay here, but I'm going to move myself. Obviously right now I'm down in the little sort of flood zone. One of the locals came around and he was sort of giving us some advice. I think I'm going to move the van slightly back. I say I do have the option to go to the little area that's in the woods, but again, checking the wind forecast, it does look as though it might be a little bit windy early in the morning. I'm not sure I said, but high tides at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Why couldn't it be like now, and then at least would know. So stay here and hopefully catch up tomorrow morning when, yeah, Sunday, it's going to be a windy and wet one. We're going to escape to the east. Right, let's get parked up for the night. Well, good morning guys, and as expected, it's raining. Thankfully right now, not as windy. Now, I actually decided to move last night. I just wasn't comfortable. That even though the local had said that the high tide was a little bit lower than the previous night, I just thought, you know what, I really, really don't want to have to wake up at 1 in the morning and move the van. So I moved it about 2 or 3 miles down the road. Perfectly quiet night, just hunkered down, made some dinner, watched a movie. But the only problem with coming here is the fact that we're now in a little wood. And the wind hasn't started yet, which is grand, but outside is a bit of a quagmire. I don't really want to get going too soon. The lights on our van are pretty shocking, and I don't really want to be driving in the dark, so I've still got another about 45 minutes before sunrise. I'll grab my coffee, going to do a little bit of work, and then I'll go on the road. And as I say, today is all about trying to push a bit east before the worst of that wind rattles through. In fact, I need to check the weather forecast to make sure it's still tracking up the west. I still think it's going to be windy today, but avoiding probably the worst of the wind. And it does look as though it's going to move through reasonably quickly. So it's a shame that, you know, I'm not having a huge amount of time here in Scotland. And unfortunately, it looks like we've hit it at a pretty bad time for rain and wind. And as I say, if it wasn't for the wind, I'd just carry on going west, you know. My next problem is I need to get outside, do a few bits and pieces. And that probably means wading through some quagmire-ish mud. I also can't find my head torch. Nicola's been in here cleaning. Welcome to Scotland, eh? Well, as you can hear, the rain is still hammering down. Still in the same car park. I think it's difficult to tell whether the sun has risen or not because it's still pretty dark and dank out there. I may be changing my plans again. I know that's all I seem to have talked about on this vlog so far. But as I say, I was looking to sort of escape east, which I think is going to be less windy. But I was hoping it was going to be less rainy as well, my location. But it does look as though I'm just driving into the rain to then sit in the rain. So I might stay in this area. As I said, this is going to get pretty windy here. So I'm not sure I'd want to come back here. However, about 15 miles east in Gretna, there is a little inn that we have stayed at before, paid for, hard standing. And I guess if it's going to be a wet and windy day, you know, maybe be there, be in the town, whatever, I'm not sure. My only one concern about that place is I seem to remember they had some big massive oak trees in their garden. Not quite sure I want to be parked in below one of those, but you know what? I'm not in any kind of rush to go anywhere, so I finished up my work. I'm going to watch a little bit of Big Bang Theory, have a bit of breakfast action and make a decision. But for now, that decision, I think it's mostly how many cups of coffee can I have this morning? Van life in Scotland, eh? Well guys, good morning. It was a pretty interesting night from a wind perspective. A few trees down, a bit of damage. I haven't really read the news, so I'm not sure whether it's much worse for further west. But this morning actually was a really beautiful morning. So I've driven about 2 hours just north of Glasgow, and the conditions as we were driving up through, I think this trip to Scotland is going to be double-edged because I don't really have a huge amount of time, especially on the mainland. And that's even been cut short even more because of the storm and me sort of having to delay things for a day or so. But as we were driving up just south of Glasgow, the light was just stunning. Oh, obviously couldn't stop anywhere. But I love it. Now, I haven't been up in this area for quite some time. I'll link a couple of videos up here. Whenever we first got the van, we came up to this area. In fact, the Bird of Prey Centre, we went in there. So I've actually brought myself to the Loch Lomond Visitor Centre, just as a bit of a rest break. And I love that whenever you cross Erskine Bridge, because even though you're still in sort of a commercial and a residential area, you start to get little exciting signs of what makes Scotland so beautiful. So yeah, I've just pulled myself into the Loch Lomond Shores car park. Just gonna have a bit of a rest break here. And then I don't really have a plan for today. I guess a little bit weather dependent. I'm gonna push on probably another sort of hour and a half, see whether I can maybe get some autumn colours, go for a bit of a walk or something. Welcome to Loch Lomond. Yeah, sadly, a lot of that lovely sort of early morning sunshine has now disappeared, and it's pretty damn cold actually. Right, well, I'm gonna head in, use the services. I was going to have lunch here, but I might actually pop along sort of a bit further north and have lunch somewhere a bit more picturesque. But yeah, hopefully over the next couple of days we get to explore a little bit of Scotland. She is beautiful. Well, that was an interesting way to drive up. The A83, the A82, they must be either doing some roadworks or closed because of a landslide because of the weather over the weekend. But quite an interesting little single track road. Made even more interesting by, of course, lots of lorries. A big lorry towing a massive caravan with lots of tight hairpins. That was quite interesting. But my goodness me. Now, unfortunately, the weather seems to have closed in. Some of the areas we passed through, the colour was just... But what about this here for a park up? Just for lunch. Not too bad at all. Well, good morning guys. Bit of a problem. After that last piece to Canberra yesterday, there was a little bit of light over the mountain, so went out and went for a bit of a dander, came back, got parked up, made myself some tea, and then I had a missed call on my phone, and it was from the Isle of Jura, the area code, and I was like, oh, that doesn't sound well. For those of you who don't know, Jura and Isla are kind of not one and the same, but very close to each other. So I rang back, and sure enough, it was Calmac, informing me that a knock-on effect from Storm Ashley and the fact that there were a couple of days worth of ferries cancelled. They had kicked me off the boat. They had cancelled my ticket. I think mainly because I was in a camper van. And what sucked even more, no possibility to rebook the rest of the week. My Isla trip just went up in smoke. Now, as I said, I was due to meet my buddy Alistair, pick him up this morning and head across there, so obviously let him know. And with the weather how it is, there are a couple of campsites down here in Campbellton, on the little peninsula, Campbellton. But I think over the next couple of days, this is how the weather's going to be, and I'm not sure, just sitting about in the van for 3 days straight was really the done thing. So we've shelved that, and I now have no idea what I'm doing for the next couple of days. And what makes matters worse was the little area that I was staying at in Gretna, I decided not to get any water because I thought, oh, in a day's time I'll be at the campsite. Always pick up fresh water when you can. That's today's lesson. And yeah, woke up this morning again to absolutely biblical weather. Storms and sea surges and closed airs and cancelled and kicked off ferries, and so I've got no idea what the plan is. We'll just make it up as we go. But yeah, gutted. If they had have told me this 2 days ago, which I'm sure they would have known, then I would have probably tracked east anyway and stayed over there, which is where kind of a lot of the really good autumn colours and things are. Maybe slightly drier as well. But let me know, the night before. Completely understand the necessity, the need to prioritise essential services, but it's the timing that kind of bugs me a little bit. But anyway, we'll take a deep breath. We'll head down to the little village down here, get parked up, grab a coffee, and then make a plan. And that plan might be to research how to build an ark. Autumn colours are beautiful though. Might get 10 minutes of dry weather. So I brought myself along about 20 minutes to Inverary. Is it just me, or here in the UK do we like putting signs up that keep us in a little box? No parking, no motorhomes, no drones. We compound that by saying the things that we do allow you to do, you gotta pay for. Ranty vlog, ranty vlog. At least the rain has stopped. Small mercies. So this is Inverary Castle up here. It's closed, and if it was open it was probably £7,000 to enter. I just wanted to go out and stretch my legs a little bit. Wanted to use the loo, but it's 50p. 10p for a p, I reckon. Again, driving along the A83 towards here. Stunning colours, but that is a very, very busy route for articulated lorries. And even though there were about 5 or 6 pull-in places, they were all very, very close to the road, so I didn't even want to park there during the day. But anyway, maybe that rain's starting again. What's new? I'll wander back to the van and we'll just slowly meander. See how many more thou shalt not signs we can come across. So I've actually pulled in at Loch, a little town on the Campbelltown Peninsula. Funny story about this place. Several years ago, Nicola and I were heading over to the Isle of Mull, and we were going to be hiring a camper van over there. And our train from Cambridge got massively delayed, so whoever it was put on a free taxi service from Perth over to Oban. And as we were leaving Perth, the lady taxi driver was like, "This is the furthest I've ever been outside of Perth in my life." So I thought it was quite weird for a, oh yes, and it's raining again, quite weird for a taxi driver. And it was myself and Nicola and two other elderly couple who were on the train as well. So we got about 20 miles from Oban and the road was closed, so they put us on a diversion. Now, for those of you who know these roads, a diversion is not a simple in and out 2 or 3 miles. It was a 70-mile diversion, which brought us down through Loch. I'm actually pulled into Loch for a bit of a rest break. I still remember it. The lady was sort of standing beside me, the taxi driver was standing beside me, and she just went, "I can't do this anymore." Can't do what? I can't drive anymore. I'm done. I'm like, "You're a taxi driver?" "No, I can't do it anymore." So she then proceeded to ask if any of us would like to drive the taxi the rest of the way to Oban. Now, I'd had a beer. The older couple point blankly refused. So Nicola stepped up to the plate, and it was one of those big black taxi numbers. I'll see whether I can find a photograph of it. Probably not. I took a little sort of surreptitious photograph in the back. But Nicola then drove, I don't know how long it was, about an hour and a half from here up to Oban. Now, the other bit, ooh, rainbows. Now, the other bit of the story that Nicola always tags onto that is, I felt sorry for the lady, so I ended up giving her a tip, even though Nicola had driven us all the way. And I think the tip actually came from Nicola's wallet as well, Nicola's purse. But yeah, this is Loch. And it turns out, if this whole YouTube thing goes south, I guess we can just start a taxi service. Right, with that rain coming on, I think it's time for lunch. So guys, I have now brought myself a little bit further south, down in Tarbert. And in fact, plans have changed again. We started this vlog with a change of plans, and we're finishing with a change of plans. So obviously, I'm not sure whether I mentioned it in the vlog, but I was due to head across to Islay with my buddy Alistair. And obviously whenever the ferry got cancelled on us, we just decided to knock it on the head because, well, the whole point of this was to go across to Islay. But as I was driving down, I just thought to myself, he lives in the Isle of Iron. I was like, you know what? Haven't met up in a good, probably over a year now, in fact. So I thought, you know what, mate? Come across, we'll grab ourselves a campsite near the Tarbert, we'll catch up maybe over something smoky, and basically just spend the next couple of days putting the world to right, or at the very least, just catching up. So that's the plan. So I'm about 15 minutes from where he will dock. He's not due in for another probably 2 hours or so. I think we're just going to hang out in this area, do a bit of walking, do a bit of eating, and as I said, maybe the odd bit of smoky whiskey as a little nod to Islay, where we should have been. Still got it that we didn't get across there, but hey, making the best of a bad bunch. Well, I probably won't record too much when I'm with Alistair. We'll just enjoy the next couple of days. But we shall probably then catch up as I'm heading across to the Isle of Mull, all being well, Calmac. Please don't cancel my ferry. Heading over there on Friday, but as always, that will be a story for next time. Right, guys, well, once again, thanks a lot for following along, and somewhere down in Cambridge, Nicola's doing this. Hey. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.